And I build in time off with my podcast. I'm not going to allow myself to be beholden to it. So I take time off during the holidays.
Yeah.
I take time off in the summer, and I just create seasons with it because when it was the race to 100, it felt like I had to record 3 podcasts a week. That was overwhelming. And it actually affected, my work and other things. I maintained that commitment and we did hit that number, but I didn't want to feel beholden to having to do that content creation when I wasn't feeling it. So I think giving yourself permission, and I think this goes, business wide, but giving yourself permission to understand or feel into what is not working and what's not feeling succinct so you can create a better version of whatever that is later on.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am delighted to have Jennie Wright on the show today. Jennie, you have many hats, many roles. As I think many of us do when we're entrepreneurs, we're always thinking about the next thing and should it be part of our existing business? Should it be something separate? And we were also talking about hiring staff and how we both have been hiring people this spring to make sure that key roles are fulfilled and people are in the right roles. And this takes us a little bit to some of your journey because you went from corporate to decided going into freelance into the ventures that you have now. So can you talk a little bit about that story and that journey?
Absolutely. And it's really great to be here. So thank you so much. I don't think anybody's journey is linear. I just don't think that happens in this day and age. I don't think people, or if they do, they're very lucky. I just feel like a lot of people say, I want to do this. And then whatever curveball comes their way. And I definitely have had a couple curveballs. Leaving corporate was sort of a bit of a challenge, I think, for anybody. But luckily, I had some runway when I left that allowed me to kind of figure out what my next steps were going to be, which I had no clue about. I honestly thought I was going to go back to corporate. But I also discovered that I don't think I am corporate material, definitely an entrepreneur. And I actually started as a VA on Fiverr. So I really humbled myself and I thought, okay, I'm not going to have any ego about this. I need to learn about this online space. I have no idea. And this is back in 2012, right? So there's not a lot out there for you to learn about what everything was. So I started on Fiverr because I thought I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. And I was on there for a very limited amount of time, but it did help me understand all the permutations of what was going on in this digital space. And I landed into summits, virtual summits, like online summits back in the day, and really focused and niched in. So even though I wear many hats now, back then I was incredibly niched in, and I think that helped grow the business a lot faster.
You did a lot of live events
I did.
previously.
I did, yeah. In corporate, I did a lot of live events, AGMs, huge conferences, right? So, running an online event with like 25 speakers was easy at that point. So I could do many. I was juggling like 18. At one point, I was juggling 18 virtual summits at the same time.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And I would say that is definitely a skill set because there are a lot of people who try to make that transition and don't make it successfully. Or they start off going, ooh, I'm going to do virtual summits. And they know the steps, but they don't necessarily know that secret sauce, right? The thing that's going to propel their events to huge success.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Totally agree with you.
So talk to us a little bit about that. What was it that you think made the difference for you beyond your extensive live event background?
I think it goes a little bit further back, and it just goes to the tenacity that I think I learned when I worked at Costco wholesale for a very long time. And I also worked for my parents for a very long time. And both of those taught me to just learn everything you can about like what space that you're in, be pliable to any new opportunity. So when I worked at Costco, I worked in the deli. I was a front end cashier. I worked in the office. I did accounts payable, receivable. I pushed buggies in the middle of winter in the lot if they needed. I worked in the photo center. Like I did every job there was because I wanted to learn everything I could about the business and I wanted to be indispensable. And I think that along with some really great experiences and some incredible mentors along the way, it taught me how to look at events and businesses differently. I have a skill, either innate or learned, where I can look at a business and see the opportunities. I can see the missing links, or I can see the cracks or the openings where leads are leaking out, where the ecosystem isn't completely contained. And so it allows me to look at a business really quickly and see those opportunities and then make really keen suggestions as to how to fix, create, become the ops dev person and figure it out.
Mhm. That's so fantastic because I think that is one of the hardest things to do. I know I get barraged with so many companies that want to help me get book more calls. And like, where am I going to fit them in my schedule? And how long is this process going to take? And how much are you going to charge me? And what if that process isn't organic to the way that I run my business? And so there are all these questions we have to ask ourselves. And then if we do get inundated, it's not always, like you said, the qualified leads. It's not always the right people coming to us. And kudos to you for also tackling so many different roles. I did that early in my career as well when I was in magazine publishing, when people read print magazines and had them delivered to their homes more than they do now. And I did everything from reception to accounts payable and receivable to subscription and circulation to marketing, events, because I also wanted to learn about different parts and I also wanted to be indispensable. I wanted to say, I can figure this out. I can tackle this. And that was in the days before we even had voicemail. So I had to literally like be the secretary and take down messages for people and the whole thing. But it gave me a lot of skills that are still valuable today. And I think I see the same thing with you.
Yeah, we share that.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the summits, the first piece of hooking them in and that list building that you utilize, because I think that's one of your big strengths, right? Is not just chasing followers or building lists to build lists, but actually building lists that are engaged and want to buy.
Yes. Really interesting thing that happened when I started doing these online events is that I saw that there was a massive disconnect between the person's business and what they wanted to do and the leads that they were attracting in these virtual events back in the day. It seemed to me like a catch-all. It was like a big net getting every single different type of fish, coral and garbage all in one thing, as opposed to focusing in and getting the one true potential client. And then I also noticed there was a massive like gap between finding those people and then engaging with them enough to get them as to like to become a warm lead. So I had two huge problems to fix. The industry wasn't supporting that.
Mm.
Everybody was being told at the time to just create a virtual summit or, put out a bunch of webinars or create a video series, get as many people on your list as possible. And don't worry when you send out your first sales email that you lose half of those people with the first email. Like,
Wow.
build a list of 5,000, but you're going to lose 2,500 right away. And this literally did happen. I watched it happen because I was still learning and I was working with clients and I watched it happen. And I was aghast. I was shocked, very dismayed that this was the thing. So, how do we overcome that? Because if I can get 5,000 leads, how many of them can I create qualified leads? And the answer was, I can't get 5,000 leads. I can get, 1,500, 2,000, maybe 2,500 of highly qualified leads that are ready and willing and able to make the next step. And so when clients would come to me and they're like, I need to grow a list of 5,000, I'd be like, okay, reality check. That's not going to happen. And here's why, but here's why it's better. So I developed this system that got us better qualified leads. And that is through a better speaker process. It's what I call your runway. How do you develop the runway so that when you get to the summit, your leads are already pre-qualified? And then after the summit or event, how can we get that sales process from like a 6 week, because it was 6 weeks at the time, how can we get it down to a 2 week process? How do we create a sales event built into your online event like a summit? And then that sales process is already happening. And then I got really smart. I don't know. Maybe it was smart, maybe it was luck. I don't know. And I thought, why can't we just overcome all the objections that people have to your program, product, or service and have that built into your runway and your event? So by the time that you put up your sales information, that they've already gone through that process that everybody goes through, right? Price, time, effort, place in life, all that kind of stuff. And we resolve most of that and we whittle down those potential leads even more until you're left with that core group.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And going through some of that process myself, and I realized, I mean, part of what I've gone through recently is deciding that I have a certain offer, deciding, testing it out, deciding, okay, that's not quite the right offer that I mean, I can do it, but it's not what I want to offer the world. So then testing something else and realizing, okay, this works really well. People are already saying great things about it in the beta test, but I'm underpricing it. And because I'm adding so much more value, and then figuring out then if I'm pricing it up. And so I'm going through that process right now of looking at what my growth team is, put out for all the cascades, and here's how many people will get in who are highly qualified, but then here's how many people will actually get to sign up if you do it at the higher price point per month. And it's worth it, but it is such a process, and you really have to go through all of those stages and make sure you are putting the right messages and making sure that they really are qualified to be there. And there are so many other programs out there that aren't making sure, that are just throwing
Mhm.
darts at the wall.
Completely. And they're actually not creating systems and processes after they've made whatever offer it is, after, you've gotten through a website form or whatever it is, they're not creating those processes that people are further whittled down and self-selected. I love giving everybody who comes into my list or a client's list the opportunity to self-select and to choose their own road. When I was a kid, and this is going to make me sound old, I loved the choose your own adventure books, right? So I love it when I can create a choose your own adventure style nurture sequence or automation that people can go, I don't want to hear about this. I'd rather hear about this. Because one of the things that a lot of people do, and this is another issue, is you ultimately, if you're in business long enough, you're going to pivot a little bit about your offers and your programs and your products, right? But then you're still sending those programs, products, and services to the exact same list that may have come in 2 years ago,
Yep.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, and they no longer want to hear it. So when you create those opportunities for self-selection or segmentation, as everybody calls it, then you're allowing yourself to only speak to the audience that actually wants to hear the thing. And they get to say, I don't want to hear anything about the other stuff. And so most of my emails actually at the bottom will say, do you not want to hear about XYZ program, but still want to get emails from Jennie Wright? Cool. Click this button. You'll no longer hear about it.
Yeah. So talk about the process of building up your own list after working on helping everybody else build up theirs and running these summits for them.
I was a very bad girl. I worked on everybody else's list but my own. But I think that's the old saying. I think that's something about the cobbler's kids don't have any shoes. So I spent a lot of time building up other people's lists, and building up my own felt I struggled to find my voice. So I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure that out, especially after leaving corporate. I mean, my corporate job, I talked about drilling and boreholes and how much gold was found in an ounce of, blah, blah, blah. And to become less formal was a process, and to connect to my own voice, I think honestly took me well over 2 years, sad as that sounds. But building up my own list was also a process of overcoming a bit of my own ego and a bit of my own lack of confidence. So, I was always liking to be the one behind the scenes, being in front of the camera, being on all those different things. So I actually challenged myself. I said, okay, I got to get over this fear of
Nice.
being on camera. And I'm a bit of a, if you dare me, I'll do it person with stuff like that. So somebody dared me to do as many Facebook Lives as I could in 30 days.
Oh my gosh.
So I did 50. I think this was December of 2019. I did 50 Facebook Lives, and I no longer have that fear. Let's say that. It's gone. It's completely gone. But what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to evolve and be able to say, okay, I actually think I can do a podcast, and I think I can do more in camera stuff. And yeah, you know what? We do need to have a photo shoot. So I do need to have those lifestyle photographs. And I can't rely on my amazing boyfriend to take pictures of me and hope that they'll come out great. As amazing of a photographer he might be, I need something more professionally set up. So yeah, a lot of those things are the backstory. And I think everybody has that to be able to grow their own business. You overcome a lot of your own ego, a lot of your own issues. What really sort of allowed me to grow my list exponentially was being in the right rooms with the right people, committing to consistency. And that meant in engaging with my list, but also growing my list, and also finding the ways to list build continuously so I could outpace any attrition.
Mm, nice. I've seen some of this in research that you consider you are an introvert, right? So that also kind of plays into some of this. And it can be really hard to get over that hump because I love teaching, I love public speaking, I love interviewing people and doing podcasts and coaching. But I also, if I'm at an event, I want to be behind the scenes. I feel weird if I'm not doing things and kind of the worker and, not unless I have to be on stage or something like that. I'd rather just work and not have to do the small talk and some of those things. So I've come back to the realization that I've masked as an extrovert for a very long time, but I'm actually quite introverted when it comes down to it. And I think people find that surprising, probably with the line of work that you do as well. They wouldn't look at you and say, but you've done all these things.
Mhm. Yep. They absolutely don't. And you wouldn't know it to meet me in person. You wouldn't know that. Only the people close to me, my family, they know that I'm that person, that I'm definitely more introverted. My partner knows that because we'll do something with a lot of people and he'll look at me and he'll be like, social battery. And I'm like, 0. Can we please go home? And he'll know that. But for the most part, I will absolutely not show that in public because you try and connect with people. And I know it's for the better good to try not to be that person as much as possible.
Yeah.
But then I embrace it when I'm home.
Yeah. Nice. It's really interesting that you chose December 2019 to do that series of Facebook Lives because then obviously, and you'd already been working on virtual events, and then the world shut down and everybody's now clamoring for virtual events. So, did that help drive your business? Did it help you solidify, I have these frameworks, I'm going to pour into this?
It did actually. My partner and I were actually on our way to go skiing in February of 2020, in the early part of February. And everybody knew something was going on, but it wasn't until March that the world kind of, I think it was like March 13th or something when the world sort of kind of shut down. I was doing Facebook Lives from a car at that point because we were driving to this location a couple hours away. And on the way home, that's when we knew things were going bad. Even in the town that we were in, they were like, "Oh, there's like, this issue's happening," and obviously the world changed. My business grew, and then I doubled down. I said, "Okay, I've done all these Facebook Lives. I've overcome this fear. Let's develop a podcast." Now, I didn't feel confident enough to develop it on my own. I actually co-hosted it with a friend of mine at the time and ran that podcast. And then I gave myself another challenge. I thought, let's get 100 episodes done right away. Like a race to 100 was what my friend and I called it at the time. So we were putting out 3 episodes a week. I don't do things in halves. I really do go for it. So we were able to get to 100 pretty quickly, and that overcame that fear. And then I got really comfortable with not scripting and not being ultra prepared, having prepared, done research, but not being ultra prepared. And it really did allow me to take my event skills to a new level. And it only helped me create better processes for the events that my clients were trying to create because I'd already kind of run through the wall for them on what was working and what wasn't at the time and was able to give them sage advice.
Well, and talk to us a little bit about what you, because that many Facebook Lives, I mean, that's quite a bit. What did you talk about when you were doing 50 in 30 days in that December 2019 and then continuing to do Facebook Lives?
Yeah, what was I talking about? I Back then we didn't have the AI, but there was this really cool website that you could put in your topic. So you put in your niche and your 2 or 3 subtopics that you would teach about, and it popped out 50, funny enough, 50 different titles, and they were all in the form of a question. And some of them were really, really good, and some of them were really, really crap. And I think it was a headline generator website actually. So it wasn't meant for, creating Facebook Live titles, but I thought, okay, well, this is going to help me at least generate some ideas. So it gave me 50 and I thought, okay, I'm just going to like knock these off one by one and see what hits and see what doesn't. And what was hitting was lead gen, converting leads, how to overcome sales process, how to sell. I actually still have the list and the dates that I did all those Facebook Lives. And then I just started repeating kind of the biggest hits from that first time into the next year. And quite honestly, I didn't really continue the Facebook Lives much long after that because I got into the podcasting side. And then I just carried those topics over. So the biggest hits from those Facebook Lives eventually became the podcast episodes that I later developed. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So talk to us about the podcast. Where are you now?
Yeah, the podcast that I had with my friend, we sunsetted that podcast a couple of years ago, and then my partner and I came up with a podcast called Acquire. So Acquire is all about acquiring leads and acquiring business and growing. And I've been on hiatus with that podcast since September of 2025 because I really wanted to change the direction of that. There's a book in me somewhere, and I wanted the podcast to be reflective of what I was trying to create with this book. And so my partner and I have been strategizing on just like what is the next iteration of Acquire going to be, and we're getting ready to start recording. So that's
Oh,
exciting.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. It's a great name.
Thank
I
you.
mean,
Thank
right
you.
there. So, I think, that alone, I'm sure people are still listening to your previous episodes. Yeah, and I appreciate that you did have a podcast that sunsetted. You started another one, but instead of sunsetting it, you've just taken a little hiatus. You're rebranding it a little bit because that's what I've done with your brand amplified too. I've never stopped doing it, but I've keep making little tweaks, and I'm at that point right now as well where I'm like, it's doing really well, but I'm seeing different kinds of episodes that are performing better. So now I want to start figuring out how to structure more of those in. And then you can still have the other podcast ideas and the other things going on, but
Exactly. And I build in time off with my podcast. I'm not going to allow myself to be beholden to it. So I take time off during the holidays.
yeah.
I take time off in the summer, and I just create seasons with it because when it was the race to 100, it felt like I had to record 3 podcasts a week. That was overwhelming, and it actually affected, my work and other things. I maintained that commitment and we did hit that number, but I didn't want to feel beholden to having to do that content creation when I wasn't feeling it. So I think giving yourself permission, and I think this goes, business wide, but giving yourself permission to understand or feel into what is not working and what's not feeling succinct so you can create a better version of whatever that is later on.
Yeah. 100%.
And you did that too.
Yeah. What is it about people building off of other audiences? And I always talk about this from the PR and branding side as well, but not necessarily the list building, because there are a lot of people who do 30-day challenges on social media. They have Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube. But I know for me, I always say, but you don't have the list. But how important is it? Because do the people who usually listen to that kind of content, are they the right people that are going to convert to a list that's going to come to a virtual summit, buy your course, do other things later?
Uh, very little is my opinion. So I still think that, but the caveat for that will be LinkedIn, I think, in a lot of ways, and possibly Instagram. I have not seen a lot of conversion coming from organic on things like TikTok to the list. There's a lot of, except if it's templates. Oh my gosh, if you've got templates like how to improve something, like if you want to give somebody a template so they can create a home budget, great, put it up on TikTok. You'll get lots of people wanting to buy your template for $9 or whatever you're charging. If you're doing fitness, 100% TikTok's the way to go. You're going to still grow your list and things like that, buy your course, etc. But it is much harder, I find, to get those really incredible leads for business growth, right? So it depends on the niche. Everything works dependent on the niche, dependent on the platform, right? So the strategy is always going to be bespoke for whatever that program, product, or service is. There's no blanket, where to find your list. But I do think it's incredibly important to try and build your list off of those platforms. We've seen every single one of them go down, or the threat of removal of various platforms. And then some of them are, just completely changed. Remember Clubhouse? Where's Clubhouse now, right? Like, it's not here
There-
anymore.
well, there's actually one podcast that records on Clubhouse that I
No
know of.
way.
So the sound quality is not fantastic, but it's all people who are very entrenched in the podcast world. So it's interesting, but I don't listen to it on Clubhouse because they do it so early in the morning on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. So, but I listen to the episodes sometimes. And again, the quality's not there necessarily in terms of sound, but in terms of advice, in terms of the issues they're talking about, it is. But that's the only thing that I know still exists on Clubhouse. So,
And Clubhouse had its day. I mean, Clubhouse
yeah.
had its day during the pandemic. It was the darling and the
Yeah.
place to be, and we were all there because where else were we going to be, right? I love the fact that out of all these different permutations of what goes on in the world, we still fall back on the major marketing points that have been around for decades, right? So the platform might change and the way that you present it might change, but the concepts in marketing really haven't changed from what they were teaching 30, 40 years ago in college or wherever you were learning marketing. You get your MBA or whatnot. So it still all works. It just has to be platform and niche specific.
And speaking of, because you were already doing virtual events, how much have they changed or have they not changed from the time you started and to now? Because I still see there are still a lot of people obviously doing the webinars, the events, some very successfully. I actually just got asked to potentially be a speaker at an AI business summit coming up because I do a lot with AI too. So I'm really excited about that one. But I'm the kind of person who's always going to say yes if given the opportunity because I know that's a new audience to me. So I'd love to hear your perspective on what you're seeing most work most successfully, perhaps for traditional businesses these days.
Hmm. Again, it's you're going to be filling out your virtual tool bag of tricks with some of the same things that have been happening and working for a very long time. Some it still work. So what has changed the most is the platforms, right? So we used to run virtual summits off of instant teleseminar, right? So that was like a platform way back in the day that was just audio only. And it was honestly, it was like a conference software for, and that's what it was built for. But we used it for summits. There's a lot of one and done summit products out there. You know, you can build your whole summit in it. I don't love those
Mm.
because when your summit's over and you only do a summit for like you work on it for 4 to 6 months and then you take a break, unless you're doing a summit every, I don't know, 2 quarters, then having just a summit software doesn't make sense in my opinion because all that content lives on a platform where nothing else is connected to it. So I would much rather build in a platform like GHL or Go High Level because it has a lot more versatility. So platforms have changed. Formats of interviews really haven't changed that much. The topics have changed, but the format of an interview really hasn't changed. And what works, it hasn't really changed. There was a whole period where people were like, you know, I don't want to be the interviewer because even though I'm the host, I don't want to interview because I'm too busy with my time. And they would hire an interviewer to do it for them. That doesn't work. Never has. And probably never will. Interviews that are fluffy don't work. Small, intimate conversations do work. Panels work. Live works, but not running it as a conference. So not saying this is the ABCXYZ conference or summit, and then you have if you have a talk at 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, and so on. Those don't necessarily work as well because people just don't have the time anymore. During the pandemic, it did. So it had a brief time where it actually worked because we were all not going to conferences. We were doing them online. And so that method worked, but it doesn't work anymore. So we're back to pre-recorded mostly with some live component. And what is really working really, really well is chapter books. So hosting an online summit as a host and getting your speakers conversations, whatever those videos are, having them transcribed, getting them edited and turning that into a chapter book. And you're all published
Wow.
authors on Amazon.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, that sounds fun. And that's something I haven't heard of before. So I've heard of the more traditional, hey, we're going to do, we're all going to do a book together and I need your chapter by this date and all of that rather. But that's such a great concept because then you're getting, it's not hopefully too rehearsed. It's really natural flow and
And you get to
authentic.
use AI, right? So AI can help us write those books. Then you're getting a finished chapter instead of like back in the day, clients were hiring me to ghostwrite the chapters of the book from the summit interviews. Great for me,
Yeah.
but really long process. And now we can throw all of that into Claude, have a really good output of what that looks like. Go in, manually edit, copy edit, so on and so forth. Remove all the M dashes, please, for the love of all things. Remove the M dashes and the negative framing that all AI just seems to do. And right now, all you have to do is pretty much get a copy edited and get a cover, and off you go.
Yeah, as an academic, we do use M dashes, so it's hard to not use them
I
because
use them too. I have an English degree. I don't talk about that much anymore, but I have an English degree. I learned how to use M dashes properly, but I just find that everybody thinks that if you see an M dash, it's now AI and that it hurts my little
yeah,
academic
same,
heart
same.
because there's still a reason why to use them, just like there is the Oxford comma. But but you just have to tell your AI not to use it because everybody's going to assume you're using AI.
Yeah, exactly. Landing pages, that's another part of this process, right? And you've done many, you've optimized hundreds, probably, if not thousands. What's one thing that is something that turns people off immediately? Speaking about negativity, that where it can be the best landing page in the world, or we think it is, but then there's one thing that the founder, the entrepreneur wants to have on there that they just absolutely shouldn't, or any other examples that you want to share.
Absolutely. I can tell you 3 things off the top of my head. One of them is having the volume on any video.
Oh,
Any video. The volume on when you go to the page will kill people because it makes them have a jump scare, and if they're at work or if they're in a place where it's loud or if they're, whatever, and it happens, they're trying to, like, mute the thing. So that's one thing. Using a font that people can't read or that is a struggle, that's the thing. Using colors that make it for people who can't read it properly, so not having enough contrast is really bad. So using a really light gray on a white background, that hurts. And the other thing is a page that is visually not appealing. And that could be subjective, but it actually isn't that subjective. Everybody has a similar like when it comes to certain things on pages. They like, because you want to evoke a calm feeling, or you want to evoke an excited feeling, or you want to evoke, like, whatever feeling you're trying to evoke. Everybody who's going to go to that page is going to want that feeling. And doing things that are counterintuitive to that will immediately cause problems on that page, right? And then anything that buries the lead, anything that throws what you're doing, what you want to sell, who you are, and it buries it, and they have to go searching for it. If they can't see it in 35 seconds, they're gone.
and that's longer than I would think people would stay on.
It
So,
Yes. Taking an average, I mean, most people say it's like 8 seconds, and it is, but if people are warm leads, then you could get more time with them. So if your font is really good, like easily, read, if your hero image and everything above the fold catches their interest, you've got 38 seconds to get them to peruse a little bit further down, in my opinion. If any of those things don't fit, then you're in that 8-second or 3-second or whatever the current time is that people say, that, and then you've lost them, right? So those are the big things that I look for, and I can see them immediately when I go to pages and I do audits so that we can change those so we can create a higher converting page.
you talked a little bit about AI. So, of course, I want to talk about that. I love using AI tools. I'm using like 4 new tools, new to me tools, I should say, between last week and this week. And I'm creating different things, interactive wheels that I can then use as, lead gen. Take this survey and it's going to give you your results and it's going to create a custom plan for you and then put them into a nurture sequence and other things like that. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'd love to hear your perspective on how much AI is too much AI? Are people just completely writing everything with AI and not using the human in the loop? And where do you see it helping versus harming?
Hmm. Okay, good question. I'm a bit of a moderate on this. I do love being able to use AI. I just recently, I feel like I'm a little bit behind the curve right now, but I just recently got into like Claude Cowork, and as it stands right now, I'm like past my limit, and I'm waiting for it to reset. So like, get really interested, and then it just shuts you down for a bit. But I'm a big believer in using the right tool for the right, the right job, the right process that you need, and I'm all for it to be helpful and to not hinder you from, from your creation process, from your building process. I was just on a call with a client where they're using Framer
Mm-hmm.
to build out website pages
Mm-hmm.
so that they're not using something like Lead Pages, which is just not doing things as fast, right? So I love these different AI products in order to be able to facilitate the things that we're trying to do as founders and business owners. Where I think we're still seeing issues is, and I call it the pendulum. We've swung so far with the pendulum to everything being AI. And I think we're starting to see that pendulum shift come back a bit, where everybody is noticing that we do need to re-add in that human element, that the human voice, the human, touch to your copy, to whatever, is great. Like, I just got a video back from a client that they used AI to completely create the video without her in it. She just, did the 40 seconds of her voice and her face and did the head up to the side and everything, and they just completely did it with AI. It's good, but is it good enough? Right. And so I'm actually testing that out right now in a funnel where I'm A B testing. So one page is going to have the AI generated video and the other one's not.
Oh, that's so smart.
Right. So we're going to see what works, because You can't just say that it will. You have to see what the audience does. I'll put 50-50 traffic on it. I'll throw an ad to it and see exactly who's going to respond to what. And then we can make that decision, right? But it's all about the testing. I can't assume. None of us can. We just have to see how people are going to interact with these things.
That's fantastic. I'm really excited. I actually want to hear about the results. So I'll have
Me
to
too.
remember this.
Yeah. Give me 2 weeks and then I'll have the results. Everything needs 14 days for me to kind of see, because, you got to see how these things land with people and you got to see how people interact with it.
That's fantastic. And I'm super excited because then now you've given me something new to test out myself. So thank you for that.
No problem. A/B test everything. That's what I do.
And I wanted to ask because your method, we like a good framework, is the list injection method. Is there anything else that you want to share about it during this interview that we haven't touched on yet?
We kind of lightly touched on it, and it's something I really feel like we need to drive home because I've given my process a name, but in reality, everything works with consistency. Again, to the right audience, using the right tools, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing is that whatever method you take, you have to give it time in order to season, to try it out, to see how people, try it on and see if it fits, kind of thing. And there has to be a minimum amount of time for that. And it depends on what you're trying to do to be able to see that. So if you're putting out a brand new lead magnet, like you were talking about an assessment or a quiz that gives you a result, you got to try that for 90 days. You have to see what happens in that 90 days, throwing it to traffic and seeing what people do before you start making adjustments. There's just not enough traffic up until that point to be able to do that. I think it's important that when you look at something like a list injection method, which is creating an online event or a virtual event or an in-person event or however you want to do it, to get a whole bunch of people in a short period of time that are highly interested and warm, that method works universally. Brick and mortar, online business, whatever you want to do. A lot of the businesses I work with are a little bit of mix of both. And those list injections work universally. Again, right niche, right product, right platform, all those different things. And so I didn't create anything crazy and new. I just saw what the market was doing and over a long period of time and just developed a system that works.
Consistency is fantastic. And 90 days, I think that's longer than most people give. So that's another really great tip. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So, Jennie, I know that we're going to share your LinkedIn and your website, and I believe that you have some free resources.
I do. I always have a freebie. Freebies are fun. I have actually a new one. I'm not sure what my team gave you, but we'll make sure that everybody gets the right one. I right now have a lead magnet assessment / creation tool. So you'll get sort of a tool that's going to ask you about your lead magnet. You're going to get some AI prompts that go with it in order to get those answers back. You can put everything into the PDF and you make your own assessment of what it is that you want to create. It just helps you if you want to create a lead magnet, and you should have multiple lead magnets for multiple different things. It just helps you figure out what lead magnet you should be creating and not necessarily the one you want to create.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Fantastic. And do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
One that reminded me from this morning, and it has to do with spring. I think it's actually Lady Bird Johnson, who was the first lady in the States. And I think it was, if you see flowers or something about flowers, then hope, then there is hope. So flowers in spring, then you can feel hope. I'm sure somebody can look that up, but I know it's something about that. I heard it this morning and I can't remember it because obviously, why would I remember it when I'm actually being interviewed about it? But it actually made me feel good today. It was one thing that I saw today and heard that made me feel good, because when you're in Canada and it's the end of winter, spring feels a little far off. And it just made me feel like, hope is around the corner.
And it's where flowers bloom, so does hope.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you for
beautiful.
looking that up.
Yes, you're welcome. The nice thing about when we're on our computers doing interviews.
I didn't want to look away and look it up. So I was
No,
like,
I appreciate it. So that's a beautiful quote. And I've had so much fun having this conversation. I've learned a lot. And I always love it when I can come on and learn things that I can immediately implement in my own business. So I really appreciate that and your openness to share. So thank you, Jennie.
Thank you. We have so much in common, which was really fun to talk about as well, right? So
yeah,
thank you
this
so
will be
much.
a continuing conversation, whether online or off of the Riverside app and just the two of us. I'm really looking forward to our new relationship. So
Me too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody who is watching this episode or listening to it. I know that you got a lot of value. Check out Jennie's freebies. I'm going to go download them right now too, because that's one of the beautiful things. I get to talk to so many people and find things that I can use that I can also test and then recommend to people. And that's one of my favorite parts of having a podcast. So thank you again, Jennie, and thank you to everybody who's listening. And I'll be back again with another amazing guest very soon to share tips and tricks with you. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.